All right, what's going on there, fellas? Today we have, I guess, my side quest day. I think I mentioned in the last training log I did how this day I'm choosing to work on my bench press, even though it might not be all that important for improving my prowess as a strongman. I've got that goal of a 600-pound bench press, so I got to do work to try to get towards it. So I guess that always puts me in a good mood for this training session, because I can't really bitch and moan about it because I'm doing it for the sole reason of I want to. So I guess that helps me, put the workout in perspective for this one in particular. Obviously, everything I do is because I want to. Nobody's making me lift weights, so I can't bitch and moan about it too much. But this one in particular really strikes home that it's like, yeah, I'm doing this because it's fun. So we're going to be putting in some more low pin press. Still in a retraining phase, so there's not much going on in this training that's too intricate. Nothing too fancy going on with the programming. Whenever I'm in a retraining phase, it's just a matter of pacing it out in such a way that you don't push too heavy too early, because when your body is retraining, you can gain strength at a bit of a concerning rate. I mean, you could say that's a bit of what happened to Hafthor. He was able to get his strength back at a rate faster than his tendons were able to readapt, even though it was still a weight that in the past probably wouldn't have been injurious to him. So you can run into a pacing issue. I know how to pace things out pretty well. But aside from the rate at which you introduce things back, what exactly you're doing in terms of reps and sets doesn't matter quite as much, because we're in this state where we're very prone to retraining. Strength you've had in the past is pretty easy to get back compared to getting it the first time. So the level of precision in the programming right now, nothing too fancy, just coming in, hitting the top single, and then some percentage-based back-offs, and then bench assistance work. I got a couple more minutes on my warm-up walk here. So one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is a misunderstanding I see a lot of people at the gym have, is people ask the question is, how do I know if XYZ? And almost exclusively, the answer is you can't know. Maybe somebody knows. They haven't told me how to know. All you can really do is come up with a hypothesis, a guess. You come up with your theory based on your training wisdom, maybe the training wisdom of your training partner, some of your friends. Maybe they can help you form your theory. But you come up with a theory that kind of passes the ear test. You're like, well, that sounds plausible. And then you just kind of translate that theory into something that makes logical sense in terms of programming. And that's kind of how you're testing it. So you could say, I've got great power off the chest in my bench press. And I feel like actually with my lighter work, I've got so much power off the chest that I'm almost coasting through the upper half. And that has led my triceps to be underdeveloped. You say, okay, that sounds like a plausible theory. It aligns with how you feel. I would say, at least saying it out loud, it makes sense. You've come up with a theory. A lot of people get stuck in this no man's land once they've kind of come up with the theory, and they'll ask people, well, how do I know if that's true? You don't, they don't. All you can do is then kind of test it out. There aren't really definitive, if you've got this limb length, this is what you should do, fact. All you can do with the limb length thing is, on average, lifters with maybe XYZ will see XYZ, so maybe this is something you could expect, or maybe that's something that could inform your personal theory, but there's no way to know what the optimal program is based on your natty status. There's no way to know what the optimal program is based on your height, based on your leverages, based on your genetics. There's no way to know any of these things. Sometimes we can observe trends, like ratios between certain lifts. Nothing is inherently wrong if you don't hit a very specific ratio. All that is a hint that could inform your theories. Maybe it's wrong. Maybe the theory that based off of that ratio is wrong. But all of these things, they can point us in a direction, but there is no way to know. All you can do is come to a theory, be like, I thought about it a lot. I think this theory sounds pretty good. I'm going to commit to finding it out. Then you take a practical look at it and you say, okay, well, maybe I'm going to do my lighter advances against bands to challenge the ability to press all the way through the weight. Maybe I'm going to supplement with extra tricep work because I feel like my triceps are lagging because I am kind of able to speed through the upper half of the rep in my lighter phases. Anything that makes sense, we translate that theory into something that looks kind of practical in terms of our programming, and then we have the conviction and the belief in our theory to stick it out for probably 10 weeks, and then we appraise whether it was right. And if it was right, cool. pat on the back. You got your theory right. If it didn't translate, maybe we start looking for a new theory or altering our theory. But that's all we're really doing, is coming up with these theories and testing them. But we need to be able to, once we come up with one, stick it through to actually test it. Once we kind of put our initial thought in and it passes that eye test, we got to have a little bit of conviction with them, rather than rapidly jumping between program and method and theory and theory. I think, I don't know exactly what the quote is off the top of my head, but like, a bad plan fiercely executed is going to outperform no plan, and it's going to outperform the guy who's bouncing between 8 plans. So if you come up with a plan and you get after it, and that plan at least sounds remotely smart, and you get after it, it'll probably work. Now, as you get better and you get more experienced as a lifter, maybe you help your training partners out, your ability to come up with theories is going to get better. You're going to be a greater percentage of the time. And that's, a lot of good coaches are really just more experienced guessers as to what is going wrong. And then the same thing kind of applies. Like, the more experienced the lifter, the better the plan is, the better the plan they're going to come up with that they fiercely execute. But the base is coming up with a plan and sticking to it, because we got to do that to learn to get better at the plans. Just because your plan might be a little bit amateurish, have some confidence in it. Know that you've thought about it, stick to it, see how it works for 10 weeks, and then adjust. Don't get caught in the adjust. Even if you're bouncing between 5 different good methods, if the fact that it's changing constantly will probably rob you of the effectiveness of any of them. All right, what's going on there, fellas? Going to do a quick voiceover for the rest of the session because I figured I haven't done one of those in a while. So prior to my sessions, I always like doing a little bit of mobility work. There's a lot of people that are nowadays, advocating for a very high specificity warm-up. What's the best way to get ready for benching? Light benching, right? Whatever mobility demands. These repeated bouts of trying to get into position, our ability to get into position will get better and better. What's the best way to get ready for squatting? Lighter squatting. And while I think that's a very good information to spread, as opposed to, let's say, about 7-8 years ago, when like Kelly Starrett stuff was really popular, mobility WOD, everybody thought they needed to foam roll and mash for 40 minutes before they lifted or they were going to disintegrate. And it led to a very inefficient use of time in the gym. But that being said, I prefer doing at least a little bit of mobility work so that my initial first couple bouts on the specific exercise feel a little less shitty. Maybe I could just retake the bar a couple of times, and I will. But if a quick little 3-minute mobility routine for each lift makes that first one feel a little bit better, I tend to err towards doing it. I have the time to spare. So as far as mobility demands, what I do before I bench press is first I open up my hip with the couch stretch, because I bench with my heels up, which means I really need to be able to put my hip into extension or it stresses the hell out of my lower back. So I do the couch stretch each side, and then I do some basic thoracic mobility. It'd probably be better to do something a little bit more active as opposed to something more passive, such as the foam roller, like the arching over a foam roller like I'm doing, but I've kind of always done them. I like them. They work well enough. Probably something more active like a cat camel or some of the more complex thoracic drills will probably be better. But then I get into benching. I saw Sebastian Oreb do it a very long time ago, warming up for the bench press with the dumbbell bench press with a little bit bigger freedom of movement. I find it helpful for getting blood flow to my pecs, make me feel like I'm a little bit more warm, less likely to tweak a pec. And when I am doing that regularly, I find I get those pec tweaks less often. So instead of doing the bar in 95, sometimes I will use a pair of 25 and 50-pound dumbbells in the place of those warm-ups, and then I'll start my specific warm-ups at one plate. Work my way up here in quarter jumps up to this 495, which I've actually never done on a pin press. I've done pin presses for back-offs, but I've never really pushed them as a primary motion, which has been fun. I think I'm going to be able to continue pushing these a good bit further, just for my own general entertainment, while benching as a general skill kind of retrains, or as a general strength retrains. I told Max I was going to do 500 today. I did this thinking it was 500, and then I went to load my back-off weight and saw that there were no 2.5s on there. Felt like a bit of a fool, but it moved pretty good. Felt pretty good. Pretty keen to keep pushing these. I think I'm having a good bit of fun with them. Very curious to see where I can take these this training cycle. Back down to 75% of that top single for 3 sets, targeting about RPE 7. I did 7 reps on this first one. Felt as if I undershot a little bit, so I pushed towards 9 in the second set. That felt to be kind of in the right ballpark.
And I had planned on matching that 9 to hopefully hit that roughly RPE 7 again for the third, but I ended up racking at 8 reps because I lost my back position a little bit, didn't feel too comfortable. Pec felt a little off, not a big deal at all, so I racked at 8. Pretty quality volume, nothing to write home about, but also nothing to complain about. And then I moved into just some basic bench assistance work. Usually I lead off my bench assistant work with some kind of pull. Old school guys would always tell you like, oh, lats lead to off the chest strength. And I think some of that's a miscommunication from the era of equipped powerlifting where you really did need lat strength to row the bar into you against the resistance of the suit. And the suit is providing that strength off the chest. But that being said, I do find that a more well-developed upper back is a little easier to keep tighter. So I like including some pulling work anytime I bench press, kind of develop those upper back, that kind of retraction, depression musculature, and then I just have an easier time finding and maintaining it when I go to bench press. So it's always kind of merited a spot in the bench workouts. Did some close grip board presses there just for fun. Here's me looking like a fool. I started off as like, damn, I am so strong today. This set's gonna be so easy. So easy, in fact, that I checked to see if I put the right weight on, and I did not. I did 3 working sets of these press downs after 2 working sets of those close grip board presses as the bulk of my tricep assistance work for the day. Just kind of drive some hypertrophy in a general mover or a primary mover with some motions that are pretty tried and true for me. Usually I like using pause maximum range of motion dumbbell benches as my pec developer, but I'm in the garage. I only have 50-pound dumbbells, so I've been doing some pause pec flies instead. Finished up with some hammer curls, trying to get my pull-up up.